A dangerous prank call. Seeing as a lot of people enjoyed my previous story, I will continue sharing my not so wholesome adventures from the ghetto. This one, though, is slightly darker than the previous. It deals with attempted kidnapping, trafficking, and or murder. Who the fuck knows? Not me. I'm still here, as can be inferred from the word ghetto. For anyone unfamiliar with my last story, my neighborhood was pretty friggin' horrible. Crime rate-wise, with a strong divide between ethnic groups. Seeing as I am Russian, my friends were also Russian. And what friends they were. Ron, Andre, Ellie were my best friends in 5th grade. We were the coolest 10-year-olds ever. So cool that we had our own zula. A zula is a Hebrew slang word describing a private place, usually built by you, where you and your buddies come to chill and hang out. I guess the American equivalent to a zula would be a treehouse. Trust me, this is all very important information. Ron, Andre, Eli, and I found the perfect place to settle down and claim as our own. The ruins of a roof of an old bunker next to a tree in the middle of a field on a hill. It was positioned on a somewhat steep hill, and it looked like a concrete bunker in a sea of tall, yellow grass fields. We traveled the neighborhood in search of discarded items and furniture to bring to our little zula, and come back with a magnificent cum-stained couch, a rug, and old-school poster of naked ladies. Our zula was officially complete, the most wholesome one in town. Andre hung his naked ladies on our tree and was very proud of his work. Andre, Ron, and Eli had a tradition. They would skip school every Wednesday to hang out at the zula, and since I was the tomboy, doesn't know that she's a lesbian yet girl, I terribly wanted to get into their boys club. So naturally, I'd start skipping Wednesdays with them, and for a while it was great. We'd play cards, discuss 5th grade politics, and prank call our neighbors until one day, Andre just had to do a stupid. You see, when little horny Andre picked up those naked damsels from the streets, he also picked up a business card, an escort service card. One Wednesday morning, Andre decided we just had to prank the poor hooker. Eli, whose role was to be the clique's official dumbass, instantly agreed it was a good idea. Ron and I, however, were a bit more skeptical of Andre's seemingly harmless ruse. But you know how peer pressure works on 10-year-olds, right? Andre calls a number and puts it on speaker. It rang and rang until someone answered. A man, who I can only imagine was the girl's pimp. The man told Andre he sounds like a big boy in an incredibly creepy way, and mind you, Andre did have somewhat of a deep voice in comparison to normal 10-year-olds, so when Andre, that beautiful idiot, decided to seriously buy a hooker, he had no objections. Andre proceeded to give him the closest fucking address to Urzula and an exact description of how it looks like. As soon as the call ended, Ron flipped out on Andre and left. Eli and Andre were super pleased with their prank call, and I just sat there on the cum-stained sofa, wondering, what the fuck did we just do? And is the hooker seriously going to arrive now? Andre and Eli were sure the man got their joke. Well, he didn't. 10, 20, 30 minutes passed and nothing, no hookers to be seen. We all laughed about our biggest achievement yet, and completely forgot about what a big boy voice you have, man. I think it was an hour later, we saw a black van pull over the street next to our Zula's field, the address that Andre gave. Andre and Eli ignore my concerns regarding the inconspicuous van, and so I am the only one watching it. It went up and down the street, as if trying to see if there was any way for it to drive into the field. Impossible, since it is sort of locked between apartment complexes and a cliff, and then pulls over again at the original spot. At this point, you'd expect a woman to come out, but oh, no. 2 men get out of the van and start walking up, towards our field, towards us. I could feel myself screaming internally as I motioned my buds to look. We all sort of freeze and have a little, oh god, what have we done moment. And then one of the men yell, "Big boy, I need to ask you something." And we practically leave a cloud of dust, getting the fuck out of there. We ran up the grassy hill, which gets quite steep as you approach its peak. When Eli falls and scabs his knee, we didn't notice him falling because he didn't make a sound, and by the time we saw him, we were too far away and even more terrified, as the men were approaching him and us fast. So we left him there. Like the cowardly 10-year-olds we were, we kept running. We reached another bunker area in the upper street. It is Israel. Bunkers and shelves are everywhere and hidden one of the 4 concrete shelter buildings, designed like big old boxes. We gently closed the metal door, sat in the farthest, darkest corner, and waited. We could hear the men searching the other shelters, and at this point, we were pretty sure we were gonna be found. The moment came, and the men opened our shelter's door. I remember his voice till this day, cold, eerie, disgusting. We just want to talk. We came all this way to you. We screamed our lungs out, and by sheer chance, a couple who were walking their dogs came to the area to investigate our cry. They scared away the men with threats of police and their massive German shepherds. And we thought that'd be that. We were so fucking relieved, but we remembered Eli. We quietly creeped down towards our Zula, but didn't see Eli anywhere. Andre was the only one of us who owned a cell phone, so calling him was impossible. We thought maybe he'd managed to run back home, and that was our next destination. I remember we looked around carefully for the van. It wasn't parked in our vicinity anymore, so we walked down to that street on a route which connects to my street and eventually to Eli's. We managed to get to my street, and at this point, we were sure the van and the men were gone for good. We were wrong. They circled the neighborhood. We saw them coming back behind us. We freaked out and ran up a long case of stairs. The van almost hit us on the stairs, breaking with a screech tire sound, and one of the men jumped out of it and started galloping up the stairs, chasing us like crazed baboon, yelling disturbing things at Andre. "You have such a pretty ass, it's gonna be mine!" And that'd be the least disturbing comment of all of them. We were not fast enough to outrun the men, and in the middle of the staircase, just as we were about to break left into a rocky terrain, he grabbed Andre. Andre was screaming so hard by now, I never heard him scream like this, and I was in tears. Then in a moment of accidental courage, I picked up a rock and ran towards the van. The man was so fucking close to shoving Andre in the back of that van when I proceeded to snipe his head with my trusty rock. It made him let go of my friend, miraculously turning him into a fucking speeding gazelle as he started to run away, still screaming his very soul out. I, on the other hand, was pretty much fucked. That man was so incredibly pissed off. I never saw someone so angry in my life. The other man in the van yelled, "Grab her, she'll do," as I tried running away, but at this point it was futile. The man grabbed me by the hair and started dragging me towards the van, and what felt like hours being dragged to the van. I saw my older brothers running towards me with a metal pipe. They pried me out of the man's hands and proceeded to beat the living shit out of them. They were apparently attracted by Andre's ear-popping screams. They eventually let both of the men go. You gotta understand, in our city and neighborhood, it takes a cop at least 30 minutes to arrive, and nobody really trusted the police anyways. Bros also feared they might call someone up to come and get them as well. The entire live-action movie was done with me getting the ass-whooping of my life from my parents. My brothers getting a badge of honor, Andre getting psychological treatment, and Ron getting a pizza right after he left us, with our hooker calling consequences. Oh, and Eli got a cool cask on his arm when he broke it as he fell down the cliff in an attempt to run away from our kidnappers. We later drew dicks on it, like real friends. We never actually found out who those men were. Our parents forced us to get that business card and give it to the police, but the police never call us back. Don't even know if they investigated it at all. Our friendship slowly died, as Andre, Ron, and Eli succumbed to our neighborhood's nature and became small-time drug dealers and started hanging out with questionable characters. So, moral of the story, don't ever go looking for hookers on shady business cards, not even to prank them. Also, don't skip school. Supposed prank call. This happened about 4 years ago. It was 3:30 a.m. and I was, of course, fast asleep in bed. At that time, I would keep my phone on vibrate at night because my crappy phone would not otherwise make an alarm sound for my alarms. My phone vibrated, which woke me up, and I looked at the screen. It's an unknown number, so I just assumed it's a telemarketer. I picked it up on a whim, which turned out to be a huge mistake. "Hello? I need help," said a girl on the other line. "Hi, who is this?" I mumbled in my half-asleep state. "Do you not know who I am?" she said. It wasn't a voice I recognized. "No, sorry, who are you?" "I'm Sophia." She did not sound like any Sophias I knew in my life. I thought she sounded more like my friend Mary. "I need your help. I think my dad is about to rape me. He's taking off his belt." She starts screaming. I sat up on my bed, concerned about this girl. She hung up the phone. I stared at my phone for a bit and realized that I can't call her back because she blocked her number. This was a red flag for me because none of my friends would call me at 3:30 a.m. on a weeknight on a blocked number. She called again. "He took off his belt. He's trying to whip me now. Ah!" She hangs up. She called back a few minutes later, sobbing. "My dad raped me. I don't know what to do. I want to kill myself." Although I didn't know who the hell she was, I tried to discourage her from ending her life by recommending that she call the police or a suicide hotline. She then said, "Can I come over to your place?" I was suddenly gripped with fear. Here was a stranger calling me with a blocked number, claiming she had just been raped by her dad and asked to come over to my house instead of contacting the police. I insisted that she call 911 instead. She hung up. Another few minutes passed. She calls again, sneering. "Ha ha ha, you fell for a trick. This was a prank call for the radio station, XXX, and you were stupid enough to fall for a prank call. Ha!" And then she hung up. Well, excuse me for trying to care for someone. Throughout the entire encounter, I was texting my friend, who randomly happened to be up and bathing at 3:30 a.m. when I woke up in the morning. I thought it was all a dream, until I checked my texts. Yep, my text conversations with my friend was still there, and so were the calls from the unknown number. For the next few days, the blocked number would call me at random times throughout the day and nights. I was so afraid. The calls finally stopped after a while. To this day, I still get really paranoid about phone calls from blocked numbers. Late night phone stalker. I was 18 years old when this happened, back in the year 2005. I'm 28 years old now. I went to Orlando, Florida to do the college program at Disney World. As it was coming to a close, I decided I didn't want to go back to college. I wanted to stay in Florida. My friend showed me this nanny site where he could find a family and nanny all around the world. Eventually, I found a family located right there in Orlando, and we decided we were a good fit. The woman who hired me, let's call her Jill, was a single mom in her mid-40s. She had a 9-year-old girl and an 11-year-old boy. She needed my help because she got a job in Arizona, and she was flying back and forth until the school year ended and we could all move to Arizona together. When she was gone, I would sleep in her bed and her best friend would sleep over sometimes, especially if the kids were home on the weekend. It was fun for me. I was responsible for picking the kids up from school and dropping them off in the morning, taking them to their friends' houses and their dad's house. But I had a lot of free time, and I still go to hang out with my older roommate from Disney. Jill was a very loud, outspoken woman. She wasn't attractive anymore, but probably was before she got older, had children, and gained a lot of weight. She loved to wear backless tops, halter tops, and a lot of other unflattering clothing. She dyed her hair blonde and always wore a lot of makeup. Jill had a boyfriend at the time. I met him once before she left town the first time. Let's call him Bob. He was a tall, broad-shouldered, fit guy in his late 30s. I found it odd because he was significantly more attractive than she was. and looked a lot younger than she did. But who was I to judge? Bob came over and Jill introduced us. They went off into another room, and I could hear them laughing and flirting, and I didn't really think too much about all of it. But then came my first weekend alone in the house. Jill was in Arizona. I had dropped the kids off at their dad's house, and Jill's best friend was at her own place. I was happy to have the house to myself. I spent the evening watching TV in the master bedroom and enjoying the peace and quiet. I fell asleep around 12 a.m. that morning and woke up about an hour later to the phone ringing. In my sleepy stupor, I answered the phone completely unaware of what was going on. "Hello?" I asked, groggy but slowly rising out of the fog of sleep. "Hey," a male voice replied. "Did I wake you up?" Irritated, I replied, Yes, actually, you did. Who is this?" The male voice responded, "You know who this is." I felt the hair creep up on the back of my neck. "No, I don't," I replied. "You're just being silly," he said. "Tell me what you're wearing." "I think you have the wrong person," I said, trying not to be rude. I wish I had been rude. "Do you sleep naked?" was his response. At this point, I felt a chill run down my spine, and I hung up the phone. At this point, I was convinced it was a wrong number or a prank call. I had no idea who it could be. The next night, I felt a little more wary. I was alone, again, and spent most of the day out with my friends. By the time I got home, I checked all of the rooms, turned every light on in the house, and kept them on until I was ready to go to bed. When I did go to bed, I locked the bedroom door, pushed a chair up against it, and fell asleep with a lamp on, after making a plan of escape if anyone ever did try to break in. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., I'm not sure what time it was, but it was late night, early morning, and a phone call that woke me up again. This time I bolted out of sleep, eyes open, on alert. I answered the phone hesitantly. Hello?" A long pause. "Hi there, cutie pie." God, no. "Look, dude, it's still the wrong number. I think I'm mistaken for someone else." "You love to play hard to get, don't you?" he responded, and again, he asked me to describe what I was wearing and what I like to do to myself when I sleep in bed. At this point, I was pretty upset. I was born and raised a Mormon, and at 18 years old, I was still pretty naive. I wished I hadn't talked to him as much as I did, but I often allowed the conversation to continue way longer than I should have. I never told him what I was wearing, or if I did, I would say something like, "As many layers as you can imagine." He never said anything too over the line, and he never called back when I finally hung up on him. But he called every night I was alone in the house, and he never called the house when I wasn't. As the weeks went by, I started dreading when the kids had a sleepover or were at their dad's for the weekend. After one particularly long week, on a weekday, they went to their dad's. I slept at the roommate's house to avoid the weird caller. The next night, I couldn't. I got an angry and annoyed call from the mystery man. "Where were you last night?" he asked, sounding frustrated and almost like he was accusing me of something. "Who is this?" I responded. "I missed you," he said, his voice now softening. I hung up, heart pounding. It was really starting to really scare me. At the time, I wasn't scared enough to really try and do anything about the phone calls. No one had tried to break in. He wasn't telling me like what I was doing or looking in on me or, that creepy horror movie stuff to my knowledge. But then one morning, Jill flew home and I woke up to her making pancakes and talking in the kitchen. I sauntered out into the kitchen, and her boyfriend was sitting at the table. Jill's back was to me. Bob was looking right at me, and there was a look in his eye that made my heart stop. He looked at me with his weird little smirky smile and said, "Good morning, sleepyhead." And I knew. I knew it was him calling me. Same voice. Same creepy softness when he spoke. Almost like he was speaking to a child. It made me feel sick to my stomach. And then he started caressing and rubbing Jill's back, all the while staring at me with the strangest expression on his face, almost like he wanted to see my reaction to all of this, or he wanted to show me what he wanted to do to me. I don't know. I just know I wanted to run out of that house and never come back. I didn't tell Jill about the calls. I didn't tell her anything. I thought if I did, she would accuse me of trying to steal her boyfriend or something. So I just pretended I didn't know. A few weeks later, we moved to Arizona, and I thought that would end it. Crazy enough, I got an instant message the night we arrived, and had a message from a new friend I didn't recognize. It was Bob. He didn't even try to hide his identity this time. He asked me the same questions he would try to ask me on the phone, but this time on Messenger. I blocked him and erased all the old messages. I never heard from him again. I know it's not the creepiest story you'll read, but it sure creeped me out at the time. So Bob, let's not ever meet again. Attempted murder prank call? Hello again. As a fan of reading other people's close encounters with danger and other unique situations, I finally decided to share some of my own. I don't know if it's a good thing, but I have a handful of scary encounters, certainly more than the average person. This post will be my third, and even though I am new to this, it has really been cool reading members' comments and reactions. What is unique about this story is I did nothing to involve myself. It was sheer randomness, and little did I know the situation that unfolded before me. It was a New Year's Eve a few years back, and my friends and I got tickets to some ballroom event in the city. It had a masquerade theme to it, and I will admit I like dressing up. Planning ahead, my friends and I booked some rooms at the hotel where the event was being held. Like many others, we arrived early and started to pre-game in the room. I remember I bought a bottle of Bacardi Mango, and I was drinking it with OJ and a splash of cranberry juice. Sounds like a little girly drink, but it was going down smooth, and I was determined to finish the bottle myself. Those days were ugly days, and that wouldn't be the first time I drank an entire bottle by myself. Finishing my last cup and holding the empty bottle in my hand like it was a trophy, I was ready for what the night had in store. I knew I would only be a few floors away from my room, so I wasn't concerned about how drunk I got. The night started off great. My friends and I looked like $1,000,000 and were partying hard. We each got separate rooms because we were all single and had hopes of bringing girls back, but the rooms were connected, so while the pre-gaming was going on, it was as if we were all in a huge suite. It was around 10:30 p.m. when we decided to go down to the event. I was a bit all over the place, but was having a great time. I danced with the girls a lot and connected with the right one just before midnight. Our New Year's Eve makeout. We went our separate ways, and I continued to bounce from one girl to the next, occasionally getting a phone number or two. I think I got around 3 or 4 by the end of the night, and of course sent out the "hey, come to my room" text to all of them. I know it sounds douchey, but I was drunk, and no one was looking for love that night, right? Laying in bed staring at the ceiling, I hear a knock on the connecting door. It's my friend Sean. He also sent out some messages, and we decided to wait together. About an hour goes by, and my head was starting to hurt. My vision was blurry, and the spots of dancing around the room when a song came on were becoming more difficult. Accepting the fact that nothing was going to happen for either of us, we began to get ready for bed. As Sean turned down the music, a loud ring came blaring from my pocket. It had to be past 3 a.m., but excitement coursed through my body. Catching that jealous look from Sean, he yells out, "Answer it!" Being a total asshole, I pull my phone out and lay it on my hand, putting it on speakerphone. Hello? "Help me! Help me, please!" Caught in a smirk and confusion, Sean and I look up at each other and I reply, "Hello? Who is this?" There was loud banging sounds in the background, and this girl was seriously crying and screaming at the top of her lungs for help. Confused at the moment, all I could say was, "Hello, who is this? What's wrong with you? Are you okay?" The phone hung up. Looking at each other, we were both like, what the fuck was that? I immediately call back and it goes to voicemail. There was no setup message. I call back again, and this time, the line opens up. As if to hit play on a CD, the screaming was still going on. "Hello, who is this? Where are you? What's wrong?" "Please help me. Help me. Ah!" All the while, there were bang sounds in the background and crying. The phone hung up again. Sean asked, Dude, who is that? I tried calling back like 10 times, and it just all went to voicemail. I checked to see if it was one of the girls I had texted, and none of the numbers matched that one. I called the police and told them what happened and gave them the number. My nerves calmed down, half convincingly thinking it was definitely a prank. I passed right out. Waking up that morning, the hangover was all that was on my mind, and it wasn't until Sean brought it up, then did I even remember it. I quickly pulled out my phone and called that number again, and it went straight to voicemail. I left a message saying she called me, and if she was okay. Fast forward legit like a year later, I get a text message. It was the girl. She said she was meaning to text me, but she never got around to it. I'll start by saying, neither of us know each other, and she's unsure how she got my number. She thought she was calling a friend the entire time. She said she threw a party at a hotel not far from where I was staying, and after everyone left, a guy came back. She said he attacked her and beat her up pretty bad. Amidst being strangled, she somehow got away and got into the bathroom. He was forcefully trying to get in. That was the banging I heard. She said she was out of it and just hitting any contact in her phone, looking for help. Eventually, someone in the hotel heard, and the police were called and the guy arrested. She thanked me for my concern, and we planned on meeting one day, but it never happened. Crazy how easy it is to think things like that are fake. I'm glad she is okay, but man, what a fucked up night. Wrong number. So, it was late one winter evening, probably only a few days before Christmas, when I received a call. I was 10 years old at the time, and proud of myself and how mature I was when engaging in phone conversations, so I was the default answerer of the telephone. The old landline on the kitchen wall had hardly rung once before I ripped away the receiver and pressed it into my ear. "Hello?" I said. "May I ask who is calling?" There was a long moment of silence from the other end, interrupted only by a small crinkling noise that was either due to poor reception or poor respiration. We got calls like this often, where my family members would have to be exasperatedly say hello into the phone countless times with no response, before, shrugging, we would hang up. Like I mentioned before, it was late. I was unwilling to go through this tedious routine, and I was planning on just hanging up. However, just as I was pulling the phone away from my ear, a deep, wheezing, slurred man's voice spoke up. "Is Tom there?" the voice rasped. "I need to speak to Tom." "I'm afraid you might have the wrong number," I responded gently. "No one named Tom lives here." "Tom," and then someone's last name, the man said, his voice rising in pitch. The last name he provided sounded somewhat like my own, and being the naive 10-year-old I was, I foolishly provided him with my dad's name. "Do you mean Dean?" I inquired. There was another long pause, this time interrupted by a louder crinkling that now significantly sounds like an intensifying wheeze. "Yeah," the voice barked. "That's who I mean, Dean. The old bastard. How is he?" I laughed awkwardly, my virgin years shying away from the phone, as he spat out the obscenity that was bastard to my younger, less seasoned self. I didn't have much experience with heavy intoxication, but something about the way this man was talking alerted what could only be an inherent, extreme drunk radar. Although I was becoming increasingly uncomfortable, I continued talking since the man on the other end seemed so excited, and I felt obligated to be polite. Also, he may know my dad, and I didn't want to get in trouble by hanging up or being rude to this man, and then having my dad talk to me about it later on. So I stayed on the phone and talked to him. Yeah, he's doing fine. He's great, actually." "Yeah? Is he still working at..." Without thinking, I answered immediately, "No, he actually works at..." Now, isn't that nice?" The voice paused again. "Now, I've been living out in the city so long, I've forgotten who you are. You must be his daughter, right? What's her name again? Susan or something?" This was the moment. where I made the biggest mistake of the conversation. Now, Susan was a far cry from my real name, and it should have been an immediate red flag for me, even if the rest of his weird comments hadn't registered to my 10-year-old mind. No, actually, I let out another weak laugh. My name's Jane. There was the longest silence of the whole conversation at this point, but I could just barely hear him whisper my name twice before he began to speak again. Jane! Yeah. You must be getting on to about 12 now, eh? It was at this point that I felt an all-encompassing oh shit sensation. This man had obviously no idea who I was, and I had given him countless pieces of information about myself that would make me extremely easy to find, although my dad and I have fairly common first names. When we still lived where this phone call took place, we were the only people around with that last name. I realized that it was time for me to end this exchange as quickly and as delicately as possible. Actually, I'm not close to 12, I started, quickly adding, and my mom is calling me, I think I have to go. Wait, honey, the man suddenly half yelled, causing me to shrink away from the phone. Wait, I haven't seen you guys in so long. Your mother, dad, and we used to be good friends. I stammered something along the lines of, yeah? In response, honey, dear, why don't we do this? You can give me your address, tell me where you're all living right now, and I'll come up to see you guys. We just moved, and I don't really remember the address exactly, from the top of my head right now, I said, lying through my teeth. There was more silence, which I'd almost expected at this point, faintly embellished with what I swear was a growl. Then, honey, I still really love to talk to you again. You want to talk again, right? As I searched for an answer, he continued. Why don't you give me your number, sweetheart, please? Give me your number. Will you please give me your number, sweetheart? What's your number, dear? He kept repeating variations of the statement. Please give me your number, sweetheart. Please give me your number, dear. Please give me your number, sweetheart. Please give me your number, dear. As I stood frozen, my knuckles white, as they curled tighter and tighter and tighter around the phone. For some reason, it took having this drunken man pleadingly ask for my phone number despite having been the one to call me to ultimately weird me out beyond the point of return. Squeaking an unintelligible goodbye, I slammed the receiver back into its holster on the wall and ran into the living room, where my mother sat with my baby sister, to tell her the story in a frenzy of tears. My mom wasn't and still isn't the warmest type, so she just laughed at me and told me he probably just had the wrong number and wouldn't even remember the conversation in the morning. I hoped that she was right and willed myself into a restless sleep that night, buried deep beneath my covers. The phone did not ring again. I refused to answer the phone for about a month after that, but I soon fell back into my regular routine, as I convinced myself that the upsetting call was a one-time deal. However, our house phone, the number of which remains unchanged, will still occasionally receive phone calls, where we pick up and save for breathing on the other end. There will be no response. One of these calls once came from inside the house, actually. But that story is an uneventful one. The times we spied on that girl and her family. When I was about 10 years old, my brother Lee, who was 12, had a friend, Joe, who had some pretty crazy ideas. In hindsight, a lot of them were tame, going to Borders and hiding Playboys and comic magazines, shooting on our jackass-type videos in the woods, playing in mid-construction houses, that kind of thing. But one thing he suggested that has always stuck with me were several times when he got us to go stalk a girl he knew. I never really understood why he wanted to do it then, and he's so normal now that I wonder how it even happened. The first time it happened, we were bored and wandering around the neighborhood talking about girls. Joe mentioned a girl he had a crush on and how she, conveniently, lived only a block away, at the end of a dead-end street on a tall hill. I think we joked a little bit about making a prank call to her or ding-dong ditching her house. But Joe one-upped it and said how about we do some army surveillance in her backyard. We call around, undetected in the yard, see what was going on inside, kill 15-20 minutes and be on our way. It definitely sounded weird, but what teenage boy doesn't love the idea of crawling around in the dark and playing army, dude? Plus, I was young, and she was supposedly an attractive female, so that probably played into it too, to be honest. So we got to her house and snuck around the sides. Lights off pretty much all the way around except for the kitchen, which was off to the back. The house had 5 windows off the back, 4 of the basic pane variety that were all dark, and one that was more like French doors for the kitchen, so that one was pretty open. On the side there were 2 windows, one upstairs, one downstairs, both dark. The backyard was all grass with no obstacles for a bit, but there was a back tree and grass line that provided coverage, enough coverage. That said, it was very thin, maybe 4 feet until the yard that backed this yard, so we could be seen from either side. The side yard with the 2 windows was much easier to hide in. There was no house next door, so this area was pitch black, and between tree cover and a tree house they had, plus some bushes, it would be really hard to be detected on that side. So we came up the side and investigated. As I said, all the lights were out. We go around back and we're on that fence line. It was fall, so there was really more of a leaf line since there wasn't a fence anymore. An older woman, mom, maybe, was in the kitchen, so we laid on our bellies for a while, watching her as she went through the Daily Mail. An older man, dad, maybe, came in and talked with her for a while before going to the right and turning on the light in that room, which turned out to be a bathroom. Awkward. As he's doing that, the girl that Joe had a crush on came to talk to her mother, so we all got to see her. She was definitely cute, but I was feeling a huge mix of feelings with us spying on these people that weirdly made her even better looking. Lee agreed, so we both felt weird about it, but we also both kinda got into it. And just as we're thinking all that, Joe is talking about finding other views as he crawls further into the yard to try to find an obstacle to hide behind. We probably laid there watching the kitchen scene unfold for 45 minutes to an hour. So far longer than our 15 to 20 minutes we initially figured. We moved around a bit at times when people came in and out of the room to check other rooms, but nothing ever lit up besides the kitchen and the bathroom. So eventually, I think it was a school night. We decided we had been sketchy enough and walked back home. We didn't really talk about it for a few days because I think we all felt a lot awkward about it. That being said, the weekend came and with more time to spare, since we didn't need to get in as early to sleep, my brother's friend suggested we head back. It's amazing how much of me wanted to go back, so much so that we took my 7-year-old brother Josh with us, since he was playing with us outside at the time. I wanted to say he was a streetwise 7-year-old for our suburbs, but he was also just a 7-year-old, and that was a pretty terrible friggin' idea. But I was also 10 years old, so it happened. We get back there, and compared to the night a few days ago, the place is positively lit up. The kitchen light is on, the bathroom light is on, the top left light out back is on, but we can't see in, and both side lights were on. The top light on the side we couldn't see in, but the bottom room was actually a computer room, and when we showed up the dad wasn't there. We actually got really nervous at first that he saw us walk up, since we always came around the side, but I guess he didn't since we were able to safely find our positions either on the fence line or behind the bushes. We waited for a while, and eventually, the crush comes into the computer room and takes over the computer from Dad. Me, Lee, and Joe all immediately flocked to that side, with our buddy climbing into the treehouse, quoting that weird Adam Sandler song about a stalker as he did it. Lee and Joe were frozen on that spot for most of her online marathon. Could have been 10 minutes, could have been an hour, but eventually I wanted more action and went back to the tree line where Josh was hiding. Mom and a little boy were now in the kitchen, chatting and having a snack. After a little bit, Joe came back over, and it was at this point that he and I majorly freaked each other out. There is a house behind us, as I mentioned before, and we swore. We caught movement out of the corner of our eyes, which could mean someone had caught us. We both ducked down and froze and waited. No one said anything. We didn't see anything. But after what felt like 15 to 20 minutes, the back room light of the house behind us shut off. Pretty spooky, since they were near us, but we figured we were in the clear. Maybe we just noticed someone before they saw us or something like that, so we snuck around in that back leaf area, watching the kitchen and the back room alternatively, probably for another 5 minutes. This is when all hell broke loose. As you're still lying on the ground, the back porch light of the Crush's house turns on, bright as sun. The dad comes out of the cordless phone. Crush stood behind him at the French doors. I think she just wanted to see what was out there. The neighbor behind us has seen us, and I guess they were friends because they immediately called the dad to let him know something was up. He had a bat in his other hand, and we had no idea what to do, so we just all took off in different directions. I saw Lee take off around the side yard and down the hill, which was our typical way. Since myself and Joe were both in the backyard, we both got up and ran towards the house with a back porch room. We didn't know where else to go, and that seemed the most direct to my house, even though it was through the woods, so we just ran. I lost track of him for a second, but just kept booking it, and ended up finding a street that was one set of woods from my own. I ran across the street but stopped in the middle, as I saw Joe with Dad, who had grabbed the kid with both arms and was berating him in the middle of the street. I froze like a deer. I was literally in the middle of the street, watching this interaction happen about 30 yards from me, also in the middle of the streets, but neither Dad nor Joe saw me. Dad seemed to have no idea what to do with Joe. Joe was just 12 after all, and even though Dad had a 12-year-old daughter, it was still just a kid, so he told her to never do this again. Next time I'll call the cops, etc. And Joe just ran. He caught up with me at my house, and after a short while later, Lee was there too. We then realized that Josh was not there, and seeing how he was 7, and how this man with a bat threatened police action, and how the whole thing in general was kind of sketch, we got pretty nervous. We debated going back, roaming the neighborhood. He was definitely within half a mile, but that's a pretty big radius, etc. When all of a sudden Josh comes running down the hill to our yard. Turns out he was lying on his stomach to blend in before everything went nuts, and when everything did, he just never got up. The dad almost stepped on him because he never noticed him, and after waiting for everything to die down, Josh slipped out to the side yard like Lee and came back home. Clever kid. We've never talked about the incident literally once since. Even in the moment, it was too weird to bring up again, especially with us leaving Josh behind. It was 7 years later, and I randomly thought of it and mentioned it to Lee. He said, "Man, that was really fucked up." And that was the end of that conversation. It's now 10 years later, and I've never told anyone this story, including my wife.